Well, it's my honor to introduce one of my best mentors out there, Dr. Kendra Rieger. She's an associate professor of nursing at Trinity Western University, has extensive clinical experience in maternal child nursing and expertise in arts-based approaches in healthcare and evidence synthesis. As a Michael Smith Health Research BC Scholar, the research program explores the arts as a way of knowing, disrupting, and healing in healthcare, and advances arts-based responses to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to action.
So yes, thank you for being here today to engage with this really important but difficult topic as well. And we want to acknowledge today that we are on the ancestral unceded territory of the Stolo people, and we're uninvited guests here, and we're grateful for their hospitality despite the atrocities of the past. So I'm presenting today on behalf of our amazing team, and I want to really honor my co-lead for this project, Dr. Lisa Bourque-Bearskin from the University of Victoria, who's an Indigenous scholar as well, and then the rest of the team members, some of who are in this room actually. So maybe raise your hands, those of you who are part of this team and who are in this room. Una as well, I'm going to mention you later. And so we've come together to develop strategies to support education and nursing students to engage with the MMIWG report in a more meaningful way. So our site here is at Trinity Western University, and we're focused on this issue of MMIWG, but specifically on the Highway of Tears, because that's a localized expression of the tragedy in our province. So you can see the Highway of Tears here on this photo, and can see how it's quite a lonely stretch of highway in northern BC. So I want to start, first of all, by honoring the strength and resilience of Indigenous women. We celebrate their invaluable contributions in all aspects of life, which has happened in spite of years of colonial oppression. Because of this history of colonization, Indigenous women and girls continue to experience higher rates of violence than other Canadians, and I start that way because often we start the opposite way, with the violence against Indigenous women. But it's important for us to realize first that Indigenous women are strong, and it's because of the results of colonization that there's such high rates of violence. So despite making up only 4% of the Canadian population, they account for 28% of female homicide victims. So just let that sink in. And they're 12 times more at risk of being murdered than other Canadians. So in response to this crisis, the Canadian government, along with Indigenous partners, initiated the MMIWG report and calls to justice, which was released in 2019. But there actually has been little uptake in education. It's really important to listen to these voices. Over 2,000 people participated in the inquiry, and 468 families shared their stories, their heartbreaking stories of violence against their loved ones, or the survivors of violence shared their stories. And I think what's really important about this report is it really helped us who are settlers to see that these disturbing rates of violence are really rooted in Indigenous specific racism, and kind of came against some of our stereotypes of Indigenous women. There's also substantial evidence of the correlation between resource extraction and physical and sexual violence. And that's why this topic is so well situated in this conference. So this is the focus. We have many aspects to this project, but the focus of today is to talk more about that correlation between what's happening on the land and what's happening in violence with women. And this correlation has actually been examined in many reports, including Amnesty International's report that's called the Out of Sight report. So I'm now going to provide just a quick overview of our project. This is a research project, so I could go on about methods. I do love methods, right, Rick? You can attest to that. But that's not the focus of this presentation. Our research purpose is to develop an interdisciplinary research collective of Indigenous people and settlers coming together to collaboratively explore how arts-based, thank you, Erica, anti-racist educational strategies can support emerging health and education professionals to engage with and respond to the MMIWG report. We're very grateful for national level funding from the SSHRC, Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada, and also to Health Research BC, which funds my research chair. So we have 3 sites. This is a study that's happening in 3 different localities, and that's a really important part of our project here at Trinity, Thompson River University, and also the University of Manitoba. Each of these places has what we call an inquiry pod. And so the overall governance of this whole research team is led by an Indigenous Advisory Council and co-led by Dr. Lisa and myself. And then at each site, we have developed these what we call inquiry pods. And on those inquiry pods, we have Indigenous and non-Indigenous researchers, students, and Una has been a wonderful student co-researcher along with some others. And Lisa Bourque-Bearskin has really challenged us to be connected with community. So each of the sites actually has community members involved as well. And like I said, nursing and education students. And so an important kind of mode of response that we're taking are the arts. And I think Erica gave many good reasons. I don't have time to get into all those reasons why we chose that. But we're all using different modes of the arts. So, and modes that are important, like really connected to the lands on which we're on. And so University of Manitoba is using soil art as an expression. Here we're using tear art to respond to the Highway of Tears, and at Thompson Rivers University, which is more of an Indigenous, fully Indigenous-led site, they're using red dress art to respond to the MMIWG. And here's our amazing Trinity Inquiry Pod, which involves a really great interdisciplinary collaboration between the School of Nursing. So you'll see Dr. Barb Astle, Dr. Sheryl Reimer-Kirkham, Kathleen, Jessica, and Rebecca is on this too, but we need to get your photo on here, Rebecca, and our also awesome student co-investigators. And School of Education, Dr. Lara Ragpot, and Switametelót Patti Victor, and then Dr. Erica Grimm, who is from SAMC faculty. And also I mentioned our student co-researchers, and really importantly, Monica Brown, who you can see right here, who's actually from Haida Gwaii First Nation, but she's Trinity alumni. And her daughter, Shaylana, disappeared on the Highway of Tears at Highway 0 4 years ago as of March 21st, and is somebody Kathleen has known all her life. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today, and the reasons for so many women disappearing on this highway. So the highway is a stretch of highway in northern BC, named the Highway of Tears because of all the suffering that has occurred along that highway, as it's the location of many crimes. And it stretches through a very remote area of BC, and is also the location of many resource extraction industries, which people are highly correlating with why so many women have gone missing on this highway. So linking this to environmental violence and linking it to colonial violence. So guided by our Indigenous mentors, we developed a 3-hour workshop where students engage with the MMIWG. And one thing that was very profound in this workshop was students reading truth readings about the MMIWG. And so I'm going to focus just on the truth readings about the Highway of Tears today. So the Highway of Tears is the location of many crimes against Indigenous women. And this really lies at the center, at the intersection of Indigenous-specific racism and gender violence. So one important thing to understand about the extractive industries are these man camp environments that they create. So there's a large influx of men that come into this environment that don't have a connection or commitment to the land on which they live. Also bring a lot of money into the community. And because of this, people have correlated the violence to Indigenous women. As well, Indigenous women don't have equitable access to the resources that are produced by these extraction industries. So it actually causes a high rate of inflation in the communities and increased cost of living. And therefore, Indigenous women are disproportionately affected by this. As a result, some remain in abusive relationships because they can't afford to move out of their abusive relationships, or they choose unsafe conditions like unsafe housing because they just can't afford any other type of housing. And also some engage in commercial sex in order to make their ends meet. And also they're often far away from law enforcement, or law enforcement doesn't pay attention. And there's also political and financial reasons because of this. There's many complexities of this, so I can't go into all of it, but we're just trying to raise awareness today. This is an excellent report by Amnesty International that really shows the linking of how colonialism has affected some of these decisions in extraction industries and how it's resulted in these risks for Indigenous women. And I just want to highlight one piece on this slide, and that's the idea of terra nullius as the foundation for harmful extraction, both from land and women. And this is the idea that the land was empty when my European ancestors came to Canada, and discount Indigenous peoples as savages that they could rule over and extract from that. And as one of the women in the report states, resource extraction in Canada is predicted on symptoms of power and domination. It's based on raping and pillaging of Mother Earth, as well as violence against women. The two are inextricably linked. So although nurses can't always be involved in changing policy with extraction policies, although I think we can advocate for that, nurses and teachers can create safe spaces where women can report violence and can also access care for violence. So not going to get into this, but our project really engaged students in some of these important issues. And they created tier art, and Erica created this activity. And I have a few examples, and we have now interviewed all of the students, 14 from this site, 22 from Winnipeg, and Thompson River will be joining us. So we'll have 60 student interviews about the impact of going through this process and expressing themselves through tier art. And students were invited to express tiers of complicity, tiers of empathy, and tiers of action. And my last point is just wanting to bring us together to look at what do we do next. And this was an important part of our conversation as well. In this presentation, I'm highlighting particularly the action steps that the MMIWG report has pointed out. There's actually a number of calls to justice for extractive and development industries, and Call 13.1 calls upon all resource extraction development industries to consider the safety and security of Indigenous women, girls, and 2 LGBTQIA people. So there's lots for us to engage with in the calls to justice. There's a clear pattern forward. And as nurses and teachers and other professionals here at Trinity University, we can work together with Indigenous partners, being guided by Indigenous mentors to learn to walk together in better ways.